All right. I'm very excited to be having this conversation about sleep. So I'm going to introduce myself and then I'll let Kylie introduce herself. For me, my name is France and I studied sleep quite a bit. I've read multiple books that experts have put out, and sleep has always been like a thing for me. I'm like the crazy person who puts Velcro on her windowsills with like blackout curtains and all sorts of things like that. And it was really important for me in general. Then when I became a mom, sleep became something that I was quite obsessed with. My family used to kind of like make fun of me because I would, go visit and like, no, Daphne has to be asleep at 7:30. And like there's no veering off the schedule because I know what happens when we do and whatnot. So we've had an array of experience with sleep, of being it very easy to fall asleep and sleeping through the night and being very challenging to fall asleep or waking up multiple times throughout the night, even at like age 5. Daphne, my daughter, is 7 now. um I've had my own challenges with sleep. Sometimes it does take me a long time to fall asleep. Sometimes I wake up early. There's just been all sorts of things. So it's playing with all the moving parts that affect sleep and how we can best support ourselves so that we can do that. Because even so, I was just telling Kaylee before the call, um, last night my daughter had, not last night but the night before, my daughter had a weird cough during the night, and so as I fell asleep she woke up. As I went to bed she woke up, and so I never fell asleep till like an hour past when I should have been in bed. And it was just brutal. Like I had 6 hours of sleep. The next day I couldn't function because I do well on like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So it's just like, and it just really showed me like the benefits and the reasons why we want to have a good night's sleep and how it affects how we can focus, how we can parent, how patient we can be with our kids, and all sorts of things. So from like the importance of it for kids and for us, I've experienced it all, and I'm excited to have this conversation. So I'll let you share a little bit about who you are and your experience with all this.
Cool. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So my sleep journey is similar. I also love a lot of sleep. I probably veer on the like 9 to 10 hours of sleep, and my husband calls me like a grandma because I need so much sleep. But my sort of quote unquote sleep journey. So I do support sleep for babies 0 to 2 in a very holistic way. And the way that all sort of came to be was because my son Christian, did not sleep very well when he was a baby. And as a result of that, I was not functioning at my fullest in terms of my motherhood experience. Um, so he didn't sleep for more than 2 to 3 hour chunks until he was 8.5 months old. And that was only because I finally reached out for some sleep support. And I actually reached out to Lauren, who is the founder of Isla Grace. And also she's the one that I did my first sleep certification with. Because I knew that she focused on the attachment piece. I did not want to do any cry it out with my children. That was just not something that resonated with me. I didn't want to leave them to cry on their own or anything like that, right? So I wanted to support and respond, but I also wanted more than 2 to 3 hours of sleep at a time. And so with her support and with her help, we really worked through optimizing sleep in certain aspects that we have control over. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, that we don't really have control over whether somebody sleeps or doesn't sleep. We can't force anybody to sleep, but we can optimize sleep. And so she helped me with, I guess, like a 2 to 3 week period to get like my son to sleep 6 to 8 hour chunks. And I felt like a whole new person. That first night I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this energy? Like after that first day. And so since then I have become really interested, passionate about supporting sleep for babies in a way that really focuses on what is working for that family and what are their goals, but also setting realistic expectations. I find a lot of the stuff that we see on the internet these days are maybe not realistic expectations. And as a result of that, there's a lot of stress. I felt that when I had my first with my son, I was like, I had sleep schedules posted all over our apartment when we lived in New York City. I think my son literally like the first 4 months, my husband was like, which one do we follow? They're all different. I was so stressed out. I tried the like eat, play, what is that? Easy. So eat, activity, sleep, and then you time. And I was like, I don't understand how this works. Like I stressed myself out big time trying to follow all these different programs and schedules and, oh, you must do nap at this time and it must be this long. And really what it was once I leaned into what's working, what's not working, tuning into my baby, sleep started to evolve naturally. I started to tune into my instincts instead of following some random person's schedule on the internet. And the stress started to melt away. And because I got less stressed, my baby got less stressed, and sleep came more easily for both of us. So I'm really excited to be here because my journey with sleep has just continued to evolve over the last, so that was like 8 years ago. So over the last 8 years, I've supported a ton of families with this sort of holistic approach to sleep. And my daughter is a very good sleeper. She's always been our high sleep needs kid also, so she takes after me. But yeah, so frequencies are something that I have just recently started adding in, and like all of our sleep has started to improve, which is just like mind blowing to me. So that's really exciting.
I love that. Yeah. So we're going to share, I think, one experience that we've had with frequency. So we use these little devices right now, and we're running a coherence program, but there's also a few sleep programs that we can do, and we can chat about that in a bit. But here's, I think, the piece that I want to share first. I didn't really use this one for the sleep program, but we have this other device, and I can pull, oh, it's right here beside me. It's called the Healy. There's some beautiful sleep programs on here as well. There's some that you can put directly, like literally right here on your chest, or you can put it in the room, and it just harmonizes the energy in the room for everyone in it to sleep. So there's a sleep one for the whole room as well. And actually, it's probably why I purchased this, to be fully honest with you. I was like, oh my God, like if there's this program in here that can support all of us sleeping better, like I'm on it. It's probably one of the main reason why I bought it. And so this is what I found. It worked every time. The program on there, you put it on your chest or your child's chest. It works for about 35 minutes if it's on the body. If it's in the room, it works all night. And instead of stressing out, oh my God, it's 7:35 and my daughter's not sleeping, it gave me, like, it's funny that you talked about stress and intuition. Like, it gave me confidence that I had something doing the heavy lifting for me. And we're going to talk about how it all works in a little bit, but Daphne would have a hard time falling asleep, whether it would be like right at bedtime or if she'd wake up in the middle of the night and she'd be up for more than 5 minutes, to go pee or something. And I'd be like, do you want to put the Healy on your chest? And she'd say yes. And we'd put it on there. It warms up. I rub her back. Within a few minutes, both of us are falling asleep, right? Taking that piece of like, oh my God, how long is she going to be up for? When is she going to fall asleep? What can I do? Like, what is going on? What energies inside her are moving? Like, it all goes away. And I can just focus on staying relaxed, putting it on her chest or on mine, breathing, and within minutes, both of us are falling asleep. So having this tool, it's a tool, it's not a magic wand. Sometimes it feels like it is a magic wand, but it's a tool. And it's just so supportive because we went through periods of time where my daughter would wake up in the middle of the night, like at age 5 and 6, and she would wake up for like 2-3 hours in the middle of the night, like literally from like 2 to 5 a.m. It's like, what on earth is going on? And there's more to that background because we co-parent, and her dad does not care about sleep as much as I do. So he doesn't worry about the piece of putting her to bed at the same time as me to like ease her circadian rhythm and stuff like that. Like he just, whatever, we're not on the same page at all. So it makes it very challenging for her sometimes to go back and forth and falling asleep at different times, waking up at different times. So having this piece for me allowed me to like really do like this massive mindset shift, but also like this nervous system shift where I could not be stressed about, oh my God, when is she going to fall asleep? Trust that the frequencies were going to bring the harmony back into her body to allow her to support her to fall asleep easily and to stay asleep. And then just, lean on that. So it would allow me to relax a whole lot more. So I think that's like my favorite piece about it is like the frequencies work to bring the harmony back, but also as a mom, I don't go into crazy stress. Like, when is she going to fall asleep? I don't go into frustration, into anger, into annoyance. I'm able to stay relaxed. And that helps the whole situation. I mean, we know that when we freak out, it aggravates the situation. And so it allows me to stay relaxed and just lean on the frequencies to support it on top of, the structures that I have in place. So that's like probably my best experience with sleep for sure. Yeah.
And I think that's so important, right? Is the regulation of the caregivers. Because we co-regulate with our babies, our toddlers, our children, our partners, pretty much everybody in our life, right? And so if you are anxious and stressed about like, oh my gosh, when is my child going to go to sleep? They're feeling that anxiety as well. So part of that is taking care of your own regulation, your own self-care, your own frequencies to bring it all down a notch, right? So I think that's an important piece of this as well, is that this is not necessarily just to be used to help our children sleep, but just used for our general well-being, our general sort of regulation, which then can also have all that trickle effect to various other parts of our lives. So for me, when I first got my Healy, so I am very, very new to this. I think I'm like 1.5 months in now, and I have loved it since day one. There's a big learning curve, but it's been a fun learning curve, and I just kind of play with it. And I think my big like wow moment was right at the beginning, where I decided I'm going to put the sleep programs on. So I just randomly chose one, and I chose balanced sleep. And I put that on while we were having our bedtime routines, while we were reading books. That's part of our bedtime routine, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But we were reading books in bed, and I just had it on. I was wearing it just like this. My kids were all cuddled up next to me, and I was reading the book. And the first night, both of my children slept in their own beds all night long without either of them waking, which is like unheard of. Usually it's one or the other waking for some reason, whether it's growing pains or wetting the bed or having a nightmare or coming into our bed or something. And so my husband and I both were like, what just happened? Like, nobody woke up last night. This is crazy and so cool. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try it again the next night. So we've just been doing that. And I would say we had it like 2 or 3 nights in a row where they both slept the whole night in their own beds. And we were like, what is this magic? And so now we do have some other little things. Mainly it's my daughter. My son's sleep has definitely improved. He's actually my lower sleep needs kid. And so wakes up usually like really early, sometimes before all the rest of us. And he has been sleeping in till 7:15, which is like huge. So that is really cool. And so really for us, it's just become part of our daily bedtime routine. And my kids really get excited about it. And they've even gotten into the habit of like reminding me if they don't see it on me, which is super sweet. My son, who is almost 8, has really started asking more questions about like, well, how does it work? And like, what are these frequencies? And like, who are you sending it to now? Like, it's really fun. And can you imagine, like, when he grows up, this is going to be like nothing. He's just going to be like, of course there's frequencies. Like, this is not some weird woo-woo magic. It's just the way that it is. Because really, it is the way that it is. And we are just coming into consciousness about that, or at least I am, fully. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it is the way that it is. I mean, radios, key fobs to like unlock our cars, to start our cars, like the list goes on. And it's all frequency, right? It's just using it to support our health is not new at all. Like, it's over well over 100 years old of research and studying this, but it's new to some people for sure. So,
Mhm.
but it's like when people say, "Oh, you can start your car from a distance." Wow, that's cool. Don't ask any questions, right? Versus when we're like, "Oh, you can support your sleep with a frequency device." It's like, well, that's weird, right? So,
Where's the evidence?
yeah. But that's that. Okay, so I'll let you speak a little bit more about the holistic approach that you like to take when it comes to sleep, and then I'll add in my bits and pieces that I've used as well.
Sounds good. So for me, using a holistic approach really means looking at things from all different areas. And whether I'm supporting somebody with their development or I'm supporting a family with their sleep, I'm really still looking at all aspects. So I'm looking at development, I'm looking at the attachment and relationship piece, I'm looking at feeding, I'm looking at if there's any body tightness. Sometimes I'm looking a little bit at nutrition, and really just considering all of those aspects because they all do lead and intermingle into each other to really affect our body. And so also part of my holistic approach is that I am very aware of toxins in our lives and really reducing the toxins. And I really try to go for like natural remedies as my first line of defense. And that has really been since even when I was trying to get pregnant and have babies. And so in my toolbox, I have usually had things like essential oils, homeopathic remedies, and now I have also recently added the power of frequencies. And so this is really like my sort of holistic, passionate way of working with clients. And I think that I do attract certain people who are also open to these different ways. In terms of sleep specifically, so again, it is very much my approach is what is developmentally appropriate for that child at that age. We're really focused still on attachment and encouraging responsive parenting both day and night. And my goal is always to help moms tune into and trust their own instincts, because I think a lot of the stress and overwhelm and like this obsession with sleep comes from these unrealistic expectations that we have that our babies should be sleeping for 11 to 12 hours consistently from a very young age, or that they should always be able to fall asleep independently, and they should be able to get back to sleep independently, and they shouldn't need any parental involvement at all once the once it's dark outside and the door is closed, right? Like there's these unrealistic expectations that our society and social media and the sleep training industry have kind of put on, and that is what's causing the overwhelm and the stress. And so really, and then this idea that somehow if your baby's not doing those things, you're creating bad habits or you're doing something wrong. And that just feeds into the stress and the overwhelm as well. So a lot of what I talk to families about is what is normal infant sleep and what does that actually look like? Setting realistic expectations around sleep, troubleshooting what might be causing the sort of frequent wakes or like quote unquote lack of sleep, whether it's a feeding issue, whether it's something like reflux going on, or there's gut health things or body tightness, or maybe your baby is developing a lot and they're going through one of those wonder week leaps, right? It could be any or all of those. And then also a big part of what we talk about is really optimizing our day and our night. And that includes things like having consistent bedtime routines, having consistent wake up times during the day, which eventually then will lead to consistent bedtimes, which all will help to optimize those longer chunks of sleep. And so with me, when I work with sleep, it's never about how do we get your baby to sleep through the night. This is like not something that we even really talk about. It's more like I come alongside to see what works for their baby, for their family, so that everyone can get more sleep, whatever that might be for them. So if your baby is sleeping like my son was, if they're waking every 2 to 3 hours, 6 to 8 hours feels amazing, right? If your baby is, sleeping 4 to 5 hour chunks, maybe we can get to that 8 hour chunk, right? So it's really coming alongside wherever, meeting the family where they're at. So that's sort of where my holistic approach to sleep comes into play. To take this a little bit further, there's also a few sort of truths. I call them truths. I think that they're truths. And I talk about this in my book as well, but truths about baby and toddler sleep and even older children. The first one is Babies wake up for a lot of reasons: thirst, hunger, wet, dirty, cold, hot. They need to change position. They're physically uncomfortable. Maybe they have gas or reflux. Maybe they get scared and they just need to know that they're safe, or they miss you. My 5-year-old daughter still comes into our bed sometimes, and I ask her why. Sometimes it's a nightmare and monsters chasing her or something, but sometimes she's like, "Mommy, I miss you." That's a valid reason, right? She's only 5. That's not very old. The second truth is that sleep is a developmental milestone. So just like crawling, walking, talking, and even eating solids, sleep is developmental. And when your child is developmentally ready to quote unquote sleep through the night, they will. When they're developmentally ready to sleep longer chunks, they will, assuming that you are creating that environment and optimizing that sleep and honing in and tuning into their sort of cues that they're giving you. Consistency is a big piece of that too. They will sleep. Everybody wants to sleep. Humans in general want to sleep. We just need to optimize the conditions so that sleep comes easily. The third sort of truth is that there's 2 mechanisms that regulate sleep. There's the circadian rhythm, and then there's something called homeostatic sleep pressure. And I think of these, and I teach about these, that they're sort of the essential sort of factors related to sleep. So our circadian rhythm, which most people know about, I'm assuming, also referred to sometimes as our body clock, it actually influences a lot of our bodily functions. It helps us organize our day by regulating our behavior and our body functions. So things like going to sleep in the evenings, getting up in the mornings, it tells us when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, it helps us digest our food, when we need to use the bathroom, it regulates our body temperature, our immune system, like so many things, right? And so one of the things that I talk a lot about, because I support babies 0 to 2, is that the circadian rhythm really starts to kind of become mature around that 6 months of age. And so up until then, your baby doesn't really know what is day, what is night. Like, we really need to tune into our baby and follow their lead. But around that 6 to 9 months of age, there's a little bit of a shift, and we can start to optimize our circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm is hardwired in our eyes, and it's controlled by exposure to light and dark. And it really loves consistency. So this is why I always recommend, especially when I work with babies older than 6 months, one of the first things that I recommend to start optimizing sleep is to have that consistent wake up time in the morning, which then will help with those consistent sort of getting more consistent nap times and eventually getting to a consistent bedtime. But bedtime is one of those things that I like to look at as a little bit more flexible, because it really depends on, especially with babies. With older children who aren't taking naps anymore, a consistent bedtime is amazing. And for us adults, it's also really amazing. That includes weekends. But for babies, it's going to depend on like how long they napped, what kinds of activities they do during the day, because that's all going to impact what happens during the day and like whether bedtime needs to be pushed forward, like earlier or later, right? And then the second piece, so that was the first mechanism. The second mechanism is that homeostatic sleep pressure. And that is something that builds throughout the day, and it's affected by age and maturity, and to some extent cultural factors. Like sometimes it's cultural norm to take really long naps in the middle of the day, and then you're up later, and all of these things, right? So normally our sleep pressure is highest at night, and that coincides with our circadian rhythm that says all the hormones and everything that's happening in there in our bodies that says, oh, it's time to sleep. And when those two things are in balance, sleep comes easily. And as you can imagine, it's really hard to fall asleep if you have low sleep pressure, which is like, so let's say, this is why like I love to have naps during the day, but I cannot have a nap after 2:30 in the afternoon, because otherwise I'm not tired at my bedtime and it throws my whole day off. So I kind of have this rule that it has to be between like 12 and 2, just like a toddler, right? But that's why, because if I nap later in the afternoon, I don't actually have enough time to build that sleep pressure before bedtime. So for babies and children, it's also hard to sleep when they have too high of a sleep pressure. And this is often what happens with overtired or overstimulated babies. And it's almost like they get a second wind. And there's a lot more cortisol running through their bodies, which makes sleep more difficult. And so this is part of the reason that I like to consider wake windows as a guide, not a hard and fast rule, because you still have to watch your own individual child. You still have to watch and see what kinds of activities during the day they're having, because sleep pressure is increased by time awake, but also the activities that you're doing. So like they're adding more sleep pressure by going to the park, playing on the playground, having a bath, eating solids, tummy time. All of those things increase sleep pressure in addition to the time awake. And so some days, some really active days, you might actually notice that your child gets tired earlier. And on days when you're like not doing so much, your child actually might not get tired at the same time. You might have to have like a longer wake window, which is why it's really important to follow your baby's cues and not some random plan on the internet. So those two things really have to be in alignment in order for us to help our babies and our own selves sleep easily, fall asleep easily, and also stay asleep through the night. And frequencies are something that can really help with both of these aspects, right? So frequencies especially can help with the circadian rhythm and all different aspects of the circadian rhythm, whether it's digestion or, hormone balancing, and yes, babies have hormones too. It's not just something that happens at puberty. There's all sorts of different sort of chemical messengers and hormones in our bodies right from the start. And so I think frequencies have such a powerful way to affect all these different things, as well as getting our body into different states of sleep, which is what some of the sleep programs do. So it's really kind of very cool. And we can chat a little bit more. Oh, the fourth thing. So the fourth truth is that we can't force, and I mentioned this before, we can't force anybody to sleep, babies and toddlers included. We can only optimize these things that we have control over, like potentially the homeostatic sleep pressure, the drive to sleep, like some control maybe over the circadian rhythm. We also have control over like our sleep environment, taking care of our baby's needs, making sure, that they have a full belly and they don't have any digestive discomfort or reflux or any of that stuff. And we can talk more about optimizing sleep, but I don't know where we want to take this, but optimizing sleep is definitely one of those things that these frequencies can be added in as an additional layer, as an additional tool.
Agreed. I love all that. And as you're talking, I'm like, that fully applies to my 7-year-old still, and it fully applies to me. And yeah, you're very like, I'm gonna share a few notes on what I took, but you said the consistency piece with weekends, and I think we've heard this, and it's like you shouldn't sleep in on weekends. Like technically you should create a routine where you go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time pretty much every single day, right? And like I personally, like I hate going out at night. Like I hate it. I'm like, let's
It
do
comes with
brunch.
age.
And
I'm
I'm
the
like,
same.
I'm 32 years old. Like I'm not old, but I'm
You're still so young.
let's do brunch, like let's hang out during the day. Like what's with these parties at night? Like it just throws off everything. Like no, I don't like it anyways. But most of society doesn't fall on that, and they love getting together in the evening, and I hate it. But no, there's very much so much truth to that. And for an example, like if I'm sure I'm not the only person who co-parents, and if the parents can't get on board with the same sleep time, like it severely affects the child. Like for me personally, my bedtime is between 10 and 11, and I try to go closer to 10. Sometimes it's 11, but anyways, and that works for me. If especially if I don't get woken up during the night, I sleep my full 9 hours and it's perfect. But if I like do go out and I go to bed at midnight or 1, oh my God, I have the most terrible sleep. It's so hard for me to get into the deep sleep state and stay there. And I find it's the same for my daughter, right? And then it also affects her wake up time. So she does like to sleep her full 10 to 12 hours. even if she goes to bed, let's say at 11 instead of
Mhm.
7:30.
Mhm.
So the next day she's up at 11. There's no way in hell am I able to put her to bed at 7:30 the next day,
Mhm. Mhm.
because that, like you said, I didn't really look at it that way, but like the sleep pressure hasn't accumulated enough, right?
Mhm.
So it's really, really interesting. And as the sleep, talking about the sleep pressure, like this weekend where my mom's visiting, and she yesterday she went to bed like technically like 15-ish 20 minutes early because she was just maxed out. She was maxed out because there's just so much going on in her life right now, so many energies coming at her, and she just needed to go to bed, right? And I'm looking at our weekend and we're planning different hikes and bike rides and this and that, and I'm like very conscious that like, okay, this is definitely gonna like overstimulate her, and how can I compensate for that, or how can we maybe shift the schedule a little bit so she's not overtired? Because
Mhm.
like me, if I'm overtired, so hard to fall asleep. Her overtired, like next to impossible for her to fall asleep. I've always said for her, and I don't know if this is something that you've observed with other kids, but for her, the more she sleeps, the more she sleeps, right? So if she's consistently going to bed at 7:30, sleeping her 11 to 12 hours, it's great. But as soon as her sleep is interrupted, it impacts her sleep. So all of a sudden, the less she sleeps, the less she sleeps. So now she's like doing 9-hour nights. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and it's so hard for me to get her back to like the 11 or 12-hour nights that she thrives on, because she's sleeping less, and it's just completely impacting her system. So yeah, like the consistency piece is huge. Things that we've tried before we had the frequencies to support us were things like first thing in the morning when we wake up, like we go outside and get sunlight on us to like tell our bodies we're awake, to really support our circadian rhythm. Little hacks like that that I've heard before, but it's a lot to do in the winter, and like it's
Mhm.
always easy to do. Um, but yeah, all you said was absolutely beautiful, and I think we can lean into frequencies a little bit more now.
Yeah.
But like very much applies no matter what age the
And
person.
I want to say, and this is a good kind of lead in, I think, to the frequency chat in terms of like the Healy, but I just thought while I was kind of prepping my notes for today's call, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put into Google frequencies and sleep. And
Mm,
let me tell you, there is so much that comes up in terms of like a lot of different meditations and other calming sleep songs that all have frequencies labeled with them or kind of associated with them. And the two that seem to come up the most were 432 hertz and 528 hertz.
mm,
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to research why. um, and you do a little bit more kind of digging. You just do another like little Google search, and it comes up that these frequencies really trigger that slowing down of the brainwave activity. They help you to relax, they lower anxiety, they make it easier for you to fall asleep and to sleep more soundly, essentially bringing your body back into that balance, into that alignment, so that you can sleep peacefully and deeply.
mm,
So 432 hertz is and I don't know a lot about like the different sleep states, like the beta and the theta and the delta and all of those, because that's not something that my clients need to necessarily understand or know. But 432 hertz is at the top of the theta range and at the start of the alpha range. And it actually helps to lower our fight or flight stress response and
mm,
activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which then helps with relaxation, sleep, and digestion. The
mm.
528 hertz, which is what a lot of the meditation like sleep music is one of the solfeggio, I don't know how to say that word, frequencies. And it can actually, or according to Google, it can help someone with sleep issues by improving the quality of the sleep because it has such a healing effect on the mind and the body and all of that as well. So I thought that was really cool that frequencies are not new. Like literally you put it into Google and it's like pages of different meditations and calming sleep music that all have these frequencies. So that was really neat to me.
Yeah, no, they're not new at all. Not new at all. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's talk about like obviously there's many different ways to use frequencies, like you just shared, like through different meditations and musics and whatnot. And that's a great way to do it. I do found, I mean, I'm someone who forever would put high frequency music playing in our house, like in our living room area, like all the time. Um, I do find that the impact of using the device versus having the music very different, but both are beneficial. So we're going to talk about the device for a little bit. So what it is, what it does is it reads us in our original blueprint. Okay. And then it scans us, our physical body, our emotional, and our mental bodies. And it identifies everything that we are holding on to that is not in our soul's essence. So, in other words, that is not in alignment or in harmony or in coherence, whatever word you want to use, right? So then it kind of spits out at you a report, and it recommends specific frequencies that your body most needs at this time to support you to start to unwind what is not in harmony with your design, with your original blueprint, right? And then we apply these frequencies and we start to shift the energies in our bodies, in our emotions, in our mental mind, brain, body, whatever you want to call it, right? And it brings us back into wholeness, into balance, into coherence, into alignment. Okay. And by now, I think most of us have heard this quote that says science has now proven that everything in the universe, including us, is made up of pure energy. And there's this thing that for me really, really brings it home. And I've heard this forever in like even in high school. A lot of the stuff that I'm relearning now, I'm like, I remember learning about this in high school, but I didn't understand the importance of it, right? Is if we look at our bodies and what we're made of, right? And there's 9 different systems. First, we can look at tissues and organs. What are the tissues and organs made of? Cells. What are the cells actually made of? Molecules. What are the molecules made of? Atoms. What are the atoms made of? Subatomic particles, right? So when we put these subatomic particles under a microscope, what do we see? Is 99.99999% space. That space is not just space. That space is energy. That space is frequency. That space is information. So when we use the Healy, it communicates with that part of our, like the deepest part of our cells, I guess you could say, right? And it gives it instructions. That's kind of where epigenetics comes in. It gives it instructions of this is how I want you to behave. And then so it starts to dissolve everything that's standing in the way for your in your body if it's not behaving that certain way, right? If it's not sleeping, for example, it starts to dissolve everything that's standing in the way so that you can have that deep sleep. Sometimes people feel results like this. Sometimes there's a lot of things that needs to be dissolved and it takes a little bit longer, right? But this is essentially the most basic explanation, I believe, that most people understand of what it is and kind of how it works. It works because it gives information to the deepest part of your cell to behave a different way and to bring back that harmony into your body, right? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it's so interesting because in the month and a half that I've been using the frequencies with the Healy, I have definitely had intentions and specific programs that I've been running. But at the same time, I have also been having these magical kind of coincidences for like other things that I was not even focused on in terms of sort of bringing back into alignment, I guess. Like even my period.
Yeah.
Like I like last month when I had my period, I focused like the 3 days or whatever on those frequencies to help me through. Like I get migraines every single month and whatnot. This month, I didn't get a migraine. I didn't even know that. That's usually my first sign that my period is coming, is the migraine. So I didn't get a migraine. I was a little surprised with my period this month. TMI here. But cramps, everything was just so different,
Mhm.
lighter, like almost non-existent. Like it did not affect me the same way that it usually does. And I haven't been running frequencies like all month long on supporting like PMS. It just was this magical thing that, because I've been running frequencies for other things, those sort of subatomic particles and everything has been brought into more alignment. And then I'm also seeing effects in this other area of my life, which is so cool to me.
Because our body is holistic, right? Like I have a background in whole body dentistry, which is really freaky to some people, but like, it talks about meridians. Each tooth is connected to a different organ and different meridians. And if you have a tooth pain, you can also, some dentists actually look at the correlated organ with it, and they support that organ as well. Like it's crazy. Like everything is connected. But in this world, we have a doctor for your ears, nose, and throat or whatever. We have a doctor for our female hormones, or female body parts, we have a doctor for this, we have a doctor for that, but everything is connected, right? And yeah, I mean, hormones actually, I was going to talk about emotions and hormones, but I did 2 talks on these. So if anyone's listening to the replay and they want access to these, just drop me a message on Instagram or whatever. But it's just like super interesting. I used hormone balance. Was my hormones were whacked like crazy. And yeah, the first month that like my period literally took me by surprise. Like I was not expecting it at all, because I had no symptoms, and I usually had some for 2 weeks, and it was like, and I did a talk about this with someone on Instagram, and it's just so interesting. But yeah, back to sleep.
Yeah, sorry, that was a
um,
little aside.
so do you want to share maybe the 5 different programs, maybe kind of what they are, and the brief explanation of what they are, if you have that handy?
Yeah, sure. Let me just pull up my little cheat sheet here. Okay, so there's, first of all, the Healy kind of goes based on, there's an app that you can download the programs that kind of come with your Healy edition. So there's different editions. All of the devices are the same, but then the different editions give you access to different programs. So essentially what it is that you would download, oh, you can't really see it, download all these different programs. You can choose one to download onto your Healy to then run. But the programs are kept in your app. So there is a whole sleep section that has these various programs. So it's very easy to find the sleep ones. So the first one, there is something called the Sleep Systems program. And this is really to like different frequencies to assist with the bioenergetic field to optimize shifting into that deep delta sleep state. So kind of like your deep sleep. So that's one that we have been running. Then there's also one called Bed Rest, which has been kind of an easy way to remember that is the rest and digest one. And why that is because this bed rest frequency program helps to sort of support that parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest system. And what that does is it helps with things like relaxation, resting, digesting, recovery. And it really helps to slow the heart rate, conserves the energy. And then that obviously, when we can be in that calm parasympathetic state, then we have a much easier time to sort of fall asleep. Another piece of this is the whole vagus nerve connection to the parasympathetic nervous system. So this is a really good one also to help bring the vagus nerve more into balance and alignment, which can also help with sleep and all these other things, because the vagus nerve has lots of functions. The third one is Balance Sleep. And this one, again, is helping to balance that deep sleep kind of phase of sleep, and just balancing all of the states of sleep as well. So this one is sort of like an overarching. This is the one that I actually put on initially with my kids, and now I kind of play around a little bit more. But this is the one that helped them both sleep through the whole night in their own beds, which was amazing. And then there's the fine flow, which doesn't really have like a sleep name to it. But this one is really helping with sort of regulating, those different kind of hormones in the body and the neurotransmitters in the body to help also overall with the healthy sleep states. And then there's a fifth one, which is actually in the digestive nutrition programs. And so that one, I don't know the like specific, I don't even have that one pulled up right now, but that one I did try. So I think that one helps with sort of the more nutritional piece and like the vitamins, minerals, like hormones, all of that piece of things to help bring our, I don't know, do you know more about the digestive nutrition one? I will say I put that on a few nights and I slept so deeply
Yeah,
those nights.
I was gonna try to pull it up, but no, it's just like, yeah, the nutrients essentially that support your sleep would be there. But maybe I'll pull it up next time you chat, but I do have it somewhere on my computer. Um, yeah, and then the other one that we can use is the egg, which has two frequencies for your body, one in like the classical programs, and then one in the Carolyn McMacken programs, which she wrote about frequency, and it's like fabulous. And that one has dual frequency. So there's two frequencies running at the same time. Typically, that's the one that I choose for myself or for my daughter. And you know what? It's just so nice. And as I got this, and it just supported my, like I said, just supported me to stay calm and relaxed, instead of like, aggravate the energy around bedtime. But I just kept thinking, man, I wish I had this when Daphne was younger and we went through all sorts of sleep challenges. Like, I'm so grateful that I have it now, because I could just like, it warms up. Like most nights, I go to bed with it on my chest, and it's just so lovely. I wake up in the middle and throughout the night to go pee, for example, or whatever, and then I just put it beside me. But like, it's just so lovely. It warms up and it's just so peaceful. So that's one. And then there's also the one for the environment, to support the sleep. They say that it radiates up to 3 meters away. So depending where the rooms are, you could have one in multiple rooms if you desire to as well. But yeah, so there's 3 more on this one as well, which are really beautiful. And then there's the whole, I want to speak about the holistic sleep. So with Healy, there's this app, I think it's called Hill Advisor. And it's the most like underrated app, but it's fabulous. So I've used it many, many times to like create different programs to support me, or protocols, I guess you can say. So what happens is in there's many super awesome information, and there's like a little search thing at the bottom, and you search essentially your condition. So as we would Google search like what to do to support hormonal balance, what to do to support healthy sleep, we put it in there, and then it spits out at you so it's not specific to what your body needs at the moment, but it's just an overall general thing. It tells you what the specific things to support healthy sleep are. And it's a lot of things that we've been talking about today, things that you wouldn't think about. But yeah, like there's digestion pieces, there's balancing out energies, there's like different things with your vagus nerve and whatever, right? So there's also that piece that we can look at. If it is really, really a deeper issue, I recommend people go in that app and look at the different programs that they recommend to support healthy sleep, and running those, and testing those out for a few weeks, I would say 2 to 6 weeks, to just really bring your body back to harmony. So there's that piece that we can look at beyond just the ones that are labeled sleep, right? Because like we said, sleep is a very holistic approach. And then there's also the option of doing it from a distance, right? So
which I think is the cool piece for sleep consultants,
yes,
to be able to add this into how you support your clients.
I agree. I fully agree. So there is so you can just, so sorry, I want to take a step back first. when Kaylee or myself are talking about, the 3 programs on the mag, the round guy, or the 5 programs on here, or maybe there's 6 that support the sleep, which one do you need right now? That's the beautiful thing. If you remember when I was just sharing about what Healy is and how it works, you can do a scan, right? And you can do a scan of just the sleep programs and say, what does my body need right now today to support me? Maybe it'll be balanced sleep. Maybe it'll be fine flow. Maybe it'll be bed rest. It doesn't matter what it is, but you can either do it one of 2 ways. Use your own intuition and look at the programs on the screen in front of you and say, what does my body need right now? And listen to that. Or you can take the guesswork out and let, Healy connect with your information field, scan your information field, and spit out at you which program you would most benefit from today, right? So you don't need to be overwhelmed with all the choices. You can do that. So when you do that scan, all 5 of the programs will pop up on the scan, okay? And it'll just be layered in like what percentage you would need it most, right? So let's say one's at 10%, one's at 90%. The first one that's at 90% is the one that would most benefit you in this moment, right? You can do all 5 though. But when you do it from a distance, all 5 of the programs will start to support you, and I'm going to use the word vibrate, into your energy field and support you to bring your body back to alignment, right? So yeah, there are times when I first got this that I would just run it for 8 hours. I would have my phone in a different room. You do it from distance, so it doesn't need to be on you or anything like that. And or if it's for your child, for example, you can just run it for like 56 minutes as you're getting ready for bed, or like just around the time that you put them to sleep, so that it supports them to fall asleep. If you're doing it with clients, it doesn't matter if they're across the world, they can feel the vibration. We are all connected. We are all connected through our information fields, through energy, through frequency, and we can communicate with each other. Distance is an illusion, essentially. So it doesn't matter where you are. So there's kind of those pieces. You can do the scan to figure out which program to use physically on you, or you can do the scan and then vibrate it at a distance, and they would support yourself, your client, your child, whatever, at those 5 different layers for however long you choose to support them, for them to receive those frequencies at.
Yeah, so cool. So I want to just quickly share, and then I'm just mindful of time, we can start to wrap it up, but I want to share just a little bit about how I used the distance healing with a client of mine to support their sleep. And I'll start off by saying that this client actually came to me for craniosacral therapy. So they didn't even come to me for sleep support. But while I was working on her child, he was 11 months old when we started working together. She was telling me like, oh my gosh, we're up like every 1 to 2 hours at night. And he's like literally latched on to my breast all night long, and I barely sleep. And they had all these different things in place. Like her husband would come and get the baby at like 4 o'clock in the morning and take him for a stroller walk for 2 hours so that mom could at least get like a 2-hour chunk of sleep. And I was like, oh my gosh, how are you even like functioning right now? This has been going on for 11 months. So I said to her, would you be open to me experimenting a little bit and trialing this new device that I have, and trialing this distance healing? I can't really tell you exactly how it works because it was right at the beginning when I had just gotten it, but it's not going to be harmful. So are you open to seeing if it works? And she was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like nothing can get worse than how it is right now. So I literally did a scan on this child. So I set him up in my program, or in my app, with like his birthday, his name, where he was born. So to really tap into that informational field. And then I did a scan to see what his body needed. And then I also did a scan with the specific sleep programs as well. And I ran those 2. So the general scan and all the programs that I came up with, and also the sleep programs. I ran both of those for him, like literally like twice a day, for, anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes each time. And I did that for 2 weeks. And I actually only did Monday through Friday. So I took 2 days off on the weekend. And she knew that. And she said to me after those 2 weeks that he stayed. So basically he slept for 3 to 4 hour chunks instead of waking up hourly. He also When he did latch, he wouldn't latch for like the full hour, or constantly. He would unlatch after 20 minutes and it would be fine. He also didn't wake us easily with any noise in the room, and they have a toddler, so that was like a big thing for the family. And he went back to sleep easily and sometimes without latching. So mom was just like, what? Okay, so it gets better because I just got an email from mom, and now it has been probably about a month, maybe 3 weeks since I stopped sending the frequencies to them, to this little boy. And she sent me back an email that just said, first of all, mom was able to go away for a few days without her baby, which is like huge for her. Her husband was initially a little bit worried about these overnights without mom there, because mom was really the sole person that was helping to get him back to sleep. He said that Julio slept forget I said the name, that this little baby slept pretty well. It wasn't an issue. He would get a bottle in the middle of the night, and sometimes this baby wouldn't even be interested in that bottle, and he would just fall back to sleep. So wasn't latching because mom was not there. Was offered a bottle like once a night, sometimes took it, sometimes didn't. And basically, as of 10 days ago, when he turned 1, overall, he's been sleeping pretty consistently with feeding to sleep, unlatching, and usually only has 1 to 2 feeds a night, which is like, how did that happen from waking up every 1 to 2 hours, latching every single time he woke up, staying latched almost for the full hour, nobody getting any sleep, to sleeping pretty consistently and only waking up 1 to 2 times at night for a feed? Like, we did no other sleep work besides me sending frequencies. We didn't even get into the whole discussion of how can we optimize sleep. I just sent the frequencies. Like, mind blown. What just happened?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Yeah, that's insane. I love that story so much. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I also, as you were talking, there's a few things that came to mind that I just wanted to share about. And I was searching for the information about, the digital nutrition ways to support sleep as well. And essentially, like, I'm not going to name it off, but it's an easy Google search. And or if you're interested, you can just reach out to either one of us and we can share it with you. But there's one for sleep, but I also remember there's one for fatigue, there's one for exhaustion. So it's not even just like how can we support our sleep, but like because we're human. There's things that happen. There's stuff with the moon and the sun and the this and the that, and there's pressure in the environment that also impacts our sleep, right? So on the days that our children are teething or having a growth spurt, or they're sick, or there's something going on with us and we don't sleep as well, what can we do to support ourselves, right? So there's like the ones, like I said, like there's fatigue and exhaustion, and there's a bunch of different ones that we can use to support ourselves. So in those mornings, like yesterday morning, I ran exhaustion because I was exhausted. I slept 6 hours instead of my usual like 9-ish hours, right? So there's that piece to remember as well. So I think for me, like, it has supported me. It's made me be more consistent in my sleep times and my own bedtime routine that I do. But also it's just made it so much. I think the biggest piece for me is just it's allowed me to not freak out about like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to fall asleep, or oh my God, she's not going to be able to fall asleep. And just to trust that there's something that I can lean on those special days, that the things that happen that I can't really control, or I go out or things like that, where I can lean into and just relax and lean into letting the frequency support me or support my daughter, right? So I think the biggest one is that, and I'd like to share with you all a small experience that has happened recently with my daughter. And it's crazy to me because she's 7, and one night, I was trying to get her to sleep, and she was like, Mom, I can't sleep. My mind is going, there's too many questions in my mind right now. I was like, okay, let's attack those questions. But first, let's put a sleep program on. So I can't remember if I put the mag on her that day or if I put one of these sleep programs on it. So I put that on her, and then I was like, let's talk about it. Ask me all the questions that are like, your mind is racing a mile an hour here. Like, let's talk about these things. And so we did. But again, I would have been so freaking annoyed if that was like a normal day and I didn't have like the frequency to support the heavy lifting of like our energies in that moment. But a very conscious thing that I did is, and this is what I want to share with you guys right now, is this practice that I do. Long story short, I am also certified as a heart math facilitator. And there's beautiful practices that we do. This one I use constantly, specifically as a mom, or when I'm dealing with people that test my patience, or if I want to look at a situation differently. And I'd like to share it with you guys because it really supports my mindset shift around the whole sleep thing, right? So I want you to maybe close your eyes for a moment if you're listening to this, and just focus your attention in the area of your heart, of your chest, okay? And I want you to go to, if you don't have a child, go to the 30 minutes before it's time for you to go to sleep and identify a feeling or attitude that comes up for you. If you do have a child, most people hate bedtime routine. They absolutely hate it. It causes so much stress and impatience within the parents. So I want you to identify that feeling or that attitude that you experience at bedtime when it's time to put your child to bed, right? So once you have that, just keep it in the back of your mind. Go back and focus again the attention in the area of your heart. And imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. As you continue to do this, what we call heart focused breathing, I want you to breathe in and feel the opposite, the feeling or the attitude that you actually desire to have in this moment, right? So a replacement attitude or a replacement feeling. So it can be the feeling of calm. It can be the feeling of neutral, ease, patience, whatever your heart tells you, right? Whatever comes up intuitively for you. And breathe in. I'm just going to use the word patience, for example. Right? At bedtime, I want to be patient. So you breathe in patience and you breathe out patience. And what I notice is every word that I choose has its own little frequency to it as well, right? So there's different things that I can feel going on in my heart or see going on in my heart. We all feel these things differently. And just do that for a minute or two, right? We're not going to do it for a minute or two, but, maybe pause the recording and do that for yourself. And practice maintaining this new attitude of this new feeling as you move throughout your day. But one thing that I recommend specifically, let's say we're talking about sleep, do this the hour before or like 5 minutes before you guys start bedtime. Just go to the washroom if you need to, right? And say, Mommy just needs to go pee, lock the door, put some calming music on or just nothing, and just close your eyes. Breathe the feeling or the attitude that you want to experience tonight as you're putting your child to bed, as you're going to sleep yourself. What is it that you want to experience, right? And without getting into this too deep, like what it actually does when we do these practices and we do them and we hit the sweet spot, and I can talk a whole lot more about this, but what actually happens is we start to shift our baseline. And it becomes, and we live it first, like we live it once. Our mind doesn't know if it's real or not. If we can actually go through our whole bedtime routine and breathe in patience through every step of it, through brushing your teeth, through taking of the vitamins, through putting on the PJ, through all the things, and breathe in patience, reading the story, whatever it is that you do, right? And then if you keep up with this practice, even if you just do it 3 to 5 minutes, before you start this, and you can even do this in the morning, it doesn't actually matter when you do it. But I recommend just before you start the bedtime, because it actually helps to build your capacity and your resiliency. And when we have a greater capacity and resiliency. We're able to be more patient, but we're also able to be more creative and fun when our children are not acting the way that we want them to act when it's time to wind down and get ready for bed, right? So it's a really, really powerful hands-on active practice that we can do with that. How did that feel for you?
That was amazing. I'm already like so calm. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this. And I love the word patience because
Mm,
I feel like that is the one that I'm like, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
If you want to share, you kind of talked about the different programs or the different editions that we can purchase, but essentially, if you just want to do a very brief overview of how we can, if someone's interested and they want to learn more about either getting distance frequencies sent to them, they can reach out to either one of us, or if somebody else sent them to the call, they can reach out to them. But how to actually purchase one to have in your home, or to support your clients if you're a sleep consultant.
Yeah, so it's actually really easy. What I'll do is I will send the link to purchase along with the video. Like, there's no point in putting it in the chat here or anything.
No,
um,
no.
but so just getting in touch with me, I can send you the link. There are various different editions. I bought the professional edition because it comes with all the programs right now, at least in Canada, and I believe in the US also. All of the programs are available to purchase for like lifetime access. I think that initially or eventually they're going to be moving towards a subscription model where you'll have to pay like monthly fees to access the programs. So now is a good time to get it. That was part of the reason that I sort of jumped in now too, was that I wanted that lifetime access so I don't have to worry about a subscription later on. And if you need help with deciding which edition to get, so essentially I think there's 5 different editions, and it just goes from like the basic all the way to the one that has all the programs, which is the professional version. Each one kind of builds on the next. I really love the scanning abilities that comes with sort of the top 3 editions, being able to scan. I find that that's a really huge component in terms of especially offering the distance healing for my clients so that I can know which ones to send to them. But yeah, it's really easy actually. And I am here to help. If you need help, I can jump on a Zoom. We can share the screen. We can go through the whole process. And there's also a little bit of a business side to this. So if you are a sleep consultant and you do this with your families and they're like, oh my gosh, I need this in my life, you can also make an affiliate income with this as well. So just like affiliate marketing that you might be doing with Amazon or whatever else, this is just another way to add in another income stream to your life. And then also with the distance healing, I am actually going to be upping the price of my packages, and I'm going to be offering distance healing as a separate service as well. So that's another form of sort of income that you could kind of have a different stream of revenue with for your clients as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so essentially it's just there's different things, but reach out to myself, to Kaylee, whoever sent you to this video if you are curious to learn more about what it is for you. And what I like to do is obviously as you add more programs as you go up in the editions, the price goes up. But I like to just look at like, okay, well, what are your needs right now? And let's look at what you need and which edition will support you instead of just looking at the price point of it. So today, when it comes to Healy itself, there's 3 pillars that it has. One is frequency, which we talked about today. The other one is wealth, which you just tapped in. There's many different ways to incorporate it into your life to build additional streams of incomes, and the community. So I'll briefly touch about the wealth and the community just super briefly. But I was reading a book by Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's absolutely amazing. Her latest book, I forget what it's called. I might have it behind me, but we'll leave it there. And she talks about 12 pillars in our lives, which we really want to hone in on. And one of them is community. One of them is community. And she asks, she talks about, do you surround yourself with people who inspire you to be a better person? Right. they should call the people that you surround yourself with, they should call onto your greatness. They should stretch you to make you look forward to the person you're going to be 5 years from now. They should not only celebrate this future version of you, but they should pour into you everything they can to help you achieve that goal, right? Your community should be people who you can share your knowledge with, but who also share their knowledge with you, right? Like what we're doing today. And who can pour onto you and while you can pour onto them as well. Like it's a give and take, right? And a community that amplifies your life and that brings you greater prosperity. And when I was reading that, and these were like her core things for community, I was like, for the first time in my life, I can say that I'm actually in a community like this. And this is the community that we have inside Healy, and the different structures that we have. So if you're curious about this piece of it, we can also share more about that with you. And I think a really beautiful analogy is just community is not a need. Or sorry, community is a need, not a want, right? We hear this thing that, like, going back to being mothers, it takes a village to raise a child. And that can be so defeating sometimes. And I've been through it all because, I was a single mom in a city where I had no family, and, my friends were busy raising their own families and they weren't interested in helping me. So even if it's not in person, having an online community, I know for me, my nervous system has felt so safe being in this community. It felt so nourished. I'm sharing my knowledge with people, they're sharing their knowledge with me, we're exchanging resources. And it's just, the most beautiful thing ever. And the analogy that I was just referring to is like, trying to build a house by yourself is next to impossible. But as soon as you start to tap into community, bring in, people to help you lift the wood and bring the nails and do this and to do that, it becomes easy, right? But to do everything by ourselves is hard. And I say that in terms of being a mom, being a human, and also being in business. Like being in business by yourself can be so taxing on your nervous system. It's something that not a lot of people talk about. And there's just so many beautiful layers that you can tap into once you do tap into a community that really supports you. And then around wealth creation, it does the exact same thing we've talked about today. It dissolves, it releases the untruths that we've carried as we use these frequencies, the untruths that we've carried about how to receive money, how much money we deserve to receive, how much our worth is, how we relate to money. And it starts to recode ourselves internally so we can have a different experience with it. And there's this beautiful step-by-step business model that helps us to support that so we can fund our dream life essentially. So I'll just leave it at, whether you're looking at doing anything in your life at this point and you're thinking, I can't do this, I can't afford this, whatever it is, whatever story you're making up, right? I want you to switch it and ask yourself, how can I? How can I incorporate more frequencies in my life? How can I create a residual stream of income? How can I have this device in my home? How can I use this to support my clients, use this to support myself, my family, or whatnot, right? So that's all I have to say. Any final notes for yourself?
No, I think this is a great place to leave it. Thank you so much. This was such a fun chat. I hope everybody enjoyed this chat. And we're both here to support you. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out. And yeah,
Perfect.
have a wonderful
Yeah.
day. It's sunny where I am. I don't know how about you?
Oh
Is
yeah,
it sunny there?
very excited today.
Good.
Excited, yes.
Amazing. Well, have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.